I don't like commentators who interview people about sexual abuse, assault, or basically child grooming. And before you click off this video, let me clarify what I mean by that blanketed statement. I don't mind people talking about those issues. I don't mind people making awareness that they bring. A lot of people don't have a big platform and can't really speak on certain subject matters with a small following. So if you're giving them a voice, I can understand. But as a survivor of sexual assault myself and childhood abuse, I'd like to give you my opinion on the matter. Firstly, I believe that if you are not giving them compensation for their story, their experience, and their trauma, I kindly ask you to age restrict the video and don't run ads on your content. And if that is a problem for you, I respectfully ask you to fuck off. What I don't necessarily like about this dynamic are the ways commentators go about reporting on basically the abuse of others. The monetization of it is really icky, and while some creators do go out of their way to support charities often in relation to that abuse, I personally haven't seen anyone ever go out of their way to actually support the victim of that abuse, especially when they're speaking on their said abuse. It's mind-boggling to me. The overall vibe of the situation feels similar to paying an artist an exposure. Yeah, you get people to see your work, but there's virtually no payoff for you as an artist. You're not really getting anything out of it. And while commentators are basically the catalyst for victims in their story, the victims get no compensation for reopening their trauma, or maybe even reopening harassment from their abusers, because YouTubers can't give them justice. Only the law can do that. So it's like, what are these people basically getting from you as you are giving them content? What are they getting from you? Nothing. For example, people who have made interviews with victims of sexual assault, they just don't offer compensation or even the money from that specific video that is about them and about their trauma. They don't offer it, but it's monetized, and that is a little disrespectful to me. And I'm calling it out, because why would you sit there and try and be an advocate for these people to not compensate them for their stories, to not compensate them for their trauma, to not compensate them for literally their life experience, you know what I'm saying? And it just leads me to believe that many commentators have a savior complex. People who perpetuate this state of mind often emulate the idea that an individual believes that they are responsible for saving or assisting others because they paint themselves in this light along with their audience. Mind you, it's not just them, it's a two-way street. You gotta walk it if you talk it. But it becomes extremely concerning when actual victims of assault don't even have the necessary legal precautions, such as contacting the police, you know what I'm saying? Such as getting in contact with the police, getting therapy, or the overall necessary resources to help heal and better the pain of the victim. I barely see people of any size do this. It's not even just the big commentators, of any size. If you are making money, a dime, a dollar, if you are literally getting monetization from talking about the abuse of people who are currently actively alive, mind you. Now, if it's dead people, I don't have a problem with it. It's like a historian thing. But people who are currently alive and currently going through the trauma and currently reliving that trauma, and you bring it up because you want a story out of it, because you want to report on it, and you can't even compensate them. I guess they do get compensated in exposure, but again, excuse me, you get what I'm saying? Especially if a video gets millions of views, and let's say basically the 1% of those viewers actually go to that person and they go subscribe, depending on how many fucking subscribers they have, is what I'm saying. Literally, on that, they won't even get a fraction of the viewage that you get. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, they might get enough viewers to get monetized, but they'll be starting out very low. They won't be making too much, because everybody's there because of you interviewing them, and everybody's there because of their story. It's like, I don't actually see anybody going out of their way to try and make sure that the victim is not only compensated, but comfortable and at all. This is the bare minimum for like the police fucking department. So I feel like it should be the bare minimum for commentators in taking the necessary step to urge them to get legal justice and the proper mental care. You can easily do that, and you can easily provide that information. It's a link away, and it doesn't cost you a thing. But a lot of people don't do that, which really makes me not like the way that sexual assault is talked about in this community, or is being portrayed, because I overall do like the way that it's being portrayed. It's just this one aspect of it really irritates me. We essentially have little mini Chris Hansons waiting around ready to pry on the next vulnerable victim of the week. You know what I'm saying? This is who's been marginalized this week, and it's all under the guise of that they're trying to help, and they're in reality trying to line their pockets. It feels like false charity, you know what I'm saying? And I don't like charity for this specific reason, and it's due to the fact that many people, especially people who are shallow, only donate for validation or appearance. I mean by this essentially is that it's easy to donate to charity rather than donate to a singular entity, to a singular victim. And while it helps many for the sake of this argument, I am mainly focused on the singular aspect, because when you give to charity, so you're giving it to a third-party company, and then they distribute that money to the necessary places that they distributed it to. But when you're doing charitable acts, it's far more personal, far more fulfilling, and it's not a paper trail, so to speak. It's not a tax write-off. It's not, it's much more genuine when you are actually accommodating victims and uplifting them by saying, I hear your story. I want you to get compensated for your story, and your story is worth more than just words, to me at least. People think that money is very shallow, but money is status. Money is literally, you don't know what they can do with that money. That money can go to their kids. That money can go to their education. You could have helped them get back onto the track as to where somebody took them off that track. People of abuse often literally stop living their lives at some point in time because of the abuse, of the assault, of the harassment, whatever. They stop living their lives at that point in time, and then they have to pick up the pieces by themselves with no help, no way. And then, they go in thinking, oh, I can tell my story, people can talk about it, and they get a little bit of notoriety, a little bit of fame. But overall, I feel like with the payment of them talking about their trauma, plus the exposure, and then the payment of getting monetization, I feel like that's a little bit more accommodating. I feel like that's a little bit more compensating, because to me, it just feels like, I'll tell your story, you'll get a whole bunch of followers and subscribers, and then you'll get monetized. You know what I'm saying? And then it's essentially giving it to people who are not well versed in this culture, who don't really know what to do with an audience of that size. You know what I'm saying? Like, not everybody needs millions of thousands of subscribers, and not everybody wants it, pretty much. I just feel like it should be the standard to just compensate them at least for how much you ever made that video. If you feel like you made this video, you know what I'm saying, you edited it, you produced it, like, this is my intellectual property, because technically it is your intellectual property. Once somebody gives you the consent of making something, you can make that thing, and you can use it however you want, legally speaking, of course. On the ethical side of things, no, not really. But legally speaking, of course, you can do whatever you want with that. But most people don't, because of the ethical implications, pretty much. But I feel like it should be a general fucking courtesy, you know what I'm saying, to at least give them the assets of that video that you're monopolizing off of, or split the money with them. Like, you get half and they get half, or you make a contract or whatever. I just feel like there should be some legal binding contractual information in which the victim is benefiting off of the situation. That's all I am saying. It just feels like a cop-out and a way to get out of compensating the victims who do share their story and who do speak out. Because honestly, if fucking documentaries can fucking pay people to talk about their story, why can't commentators? Whether or not y'all like to admit it, you guys are the new wave of journalists. You guys are the new documentarians, the new historians, and essentially when these people come out about their stories, they're selling it to you because of the size that you are, in hopes that you'll cover it. And the least you can do is offer them something worthwhile, such as compensation. Which again leads me back to the savior complex, because this is pretty much normalized on YouTube, and I find that this opinion of mine will be very polarizing to some people. I don't care. People see these big creators and think that this is a far more efficient way of seeking justice, and in the moment I can see how you feel that, because you take them out online, you stop them from making any types of money online, or you kind of just expose their behavior, and then more people see their behavior and I'm less inclined to support them and things like that. I understand that. It does benefit there. I won't discredit that. But in the reality of situations, this is YouTube versus the legal system. And I don't mean to be mean. I don't mean to hurt people's feelings. But you guys are civilians. Y'all have no power in the real world to do anything. And that's really harsh for me to say. but it's true. You have no power, you make no impact, you know, you can't get that person thrown into jail, only the police can, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you can make a nice, clear, concise video, but the moment you edit it is the moment the evidence is tampered with. You get what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot more nuance to this, and I feel like these people get praised so high for doing below the bare minimum, because the police does the bare minimum. The police gives therapy, the police gives the victim a chance to say their story, you know what I'm saying? And the whole main part of you going to law enforcement is so that the only time you have to re-go through your trauma is during the interrogation and then during the trial. But on YouTube, your trauma can literally last for fucking decades. It can last for decades because somebody found an inconsistency in your story and they're just playing fucking lawyer online and prosecutor online, when in reality you could actually be in the courtroom. Like, it's going to be hard to deal with this shit, but you're going to have to deal with it. But you can be in the courtroom, be before a judge, you will see your abuser, your attacker, whatever, and you can actually sit there and get the gratification of watching them give them the guilty verdict. That is power. That is power right there. Like, yes, you can talk about it on YouTube, you can get a couple of views, you can have bigger YouTubers talk about your situation, but that is power in of itself. The act of literally taking back your power is by prosecuting somebody to the fullest extent of the law. And you can't do that on YouTube when you're making these videos about it, when you're having people touch their hands into certain situations, especially when you're having people touch and tamper with fucking evidence. Like, please, God, please, stop. My God. Which again, it just leads me back to the savior complex, because I just think that this is a very problematic way of, you know, getting justice out there. People see these big creators and they think it's far more efficient than seeking justice the legal way. And even though that is a matter of perspective, and I won't say that it's wrong, it does, however, raise the probability of someone turning to YouTube rather than them turning to law enforcement and actually filing a case. And we all saw what happened with the Onision situation, and because so many people had their fucking hand dipped into that situation, it warranted a lot of unnecessary drama and overall confusion, giving it a lot of unnecessary opinions, in my opinion, because this was talked about for so long, so extensively, and it got so many eyes on it that even if it was to be reported and to go to court, I'm certain that with all the media attention plus the documentary that just came out about it, a judge would have a very hard time finding an unbiased jury. Therefore, if a state chose to provide juries, basically the juries had to be impartial, okay? Unbiased, impartial, whatever you want to call it. And impartiality is a twofold requirement. First, the selection of a petite jury from a representative cross-section of the community is an essential component of the Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. This requirement applies only to jury panels or veneers, binaires, I don't know how to pronounce it, I'm not a lawyer, but from which petite juries are chosen, and not to the composition of petite jurors themselves. Essentially, this can lead to a very biased case and a very messy trial, because let's say the judge can't find a juror, they're gonna have to keep switching out people, and keep switching out people, and keep switching out people, and keep switching out people until what? Until the fucking judge mistrials it or dismisses it, or literally is like, there's no way. If you have too many eyes on a certain case, then public opinion then in turn gets swayed. That's why they tell jurors not to fucking involve themselves into the case. This is why they pick people randomly. This is why it is mandatory to do jury duty, because they need that clear, unbiased perspective from each person. But it's never unbiased. Everybody has their own prejudices. Everybody has their own way of thinking. So it really isn't unbiased. But for somebody to get a fair judgment, you know what I'm saying? Even if they are terrible, everybody is still deserving of a right of a fair judgment. You get what I'm saying? You still have to go in front of a trial. Even if it's like fucking set in stone and everybody knows that they did it, there still needs to be an unbiased fucking perspective there. It needs to be there. So before I head off, I wanted to give my last little bit of grievances, because I'm not just gonna sit here and like yell at y'all for about like 20 minutes. I'm not gonna do that. So here's my advice to commentators and victims of what I think you can do better. You can take that advice or you can completely fucking ignore me. I don't really give a shit. But if I see you doing things like this, you have my props. If I don't see you doing things like this, you're disgusting. Period, poo. Anyways, commentators, you need to be more considerate. And if you are already considerate, be even more fucking accommodating. Because it doesn't hurt anybody if you're more accommodating. Because essentially, your bread and butter stems from the trauma of other people, of sexual assault victims, of traumatic fucking instances. Like, let's actually realize what you're doing here, sweetie. And you need to start compensating victims for their trauma. Like, period. And you need to start linking mental health resources, not only for them, but for others who watch your content who may be going through similar issues. And if you can't compensate the victim, fucking age restrict your content, please. As to not make money off of them, to show basic fucking respect and human decency, please. And to start linking like lawyers and other forms of affordable legal protection for those who do want to pursue, or for those who just need legal advice. The biggest thing that I need you to make sure that you do, though, before you even post a video, is make sure that the victim has filed a report. Make sure they are taking the necessary precautions. Help them and guide them into the right direction, at least before monetizing their trauma. Please. You can still do everything I stated here and share their story. And as harsh, like I said, as harsh as this may sound, you're a fucking civilian. You don't have the credentials to do this. You want to know who has the credentials? Fucking therapists. You want to know who has the credentials? The fucking law. Those are the people who have the actual credentials. You're just sitting here playing vigilante, whoa, I'm a savior, I'm a hero, I'm helping, victims. I am helping people. You are, but you're doing it on a self-righteous fucking trip. I need you to understand that. You're doing it on a self-righteous trip. Alright? And while you may have some reach online, in the real world that don't mean shit. In reality, that doesn't mean shit. It will not give people the justice that they drive and seek for. So please, for the love of God, stop reporting on YouTube only victims. Please. Like, I would love to know what is going on with all victims of sexual assault. I would love to know what's going on with all victims of child abuse that aren't mainly abused and sexually assaulted by fucking influencers or celebrities. That's not what the world revolves around. You know what I'm saying? Why don't you talk about the missing children that go missing every fucking day? Because it doesn't give you clicks. It doesn't give you views. No. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't do that for you. It doesn't give you that niche. You know what I'm saying? You can't really do an interview with a missing girl, can you? You can't really monetize off of her trauma, can you? I mean, you can, but you get what I'm saying here. Like, you can't really get into it like how you get into it with the fucking victims that you put on your shows, that you talk about, that you literally sit here and let the community discredit. Also, why don't you give fucking victims anonymity? Like, I had to hold off for a second. Why the fuck don't y'all give victims anonymity? Like, even Chris Hansen had the decency to do that, and he's trash. You know what I'm saying? Somebody wasn't comfortable with that. He wasn't comfortable with that. Like, the moment you out a victim is the moment that literally all eyes are on them. That includes their abuser's eyes. That includes exactly that. And people be forgetting that. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. There are thousands of victims whose stories need to be told. Because everybody's story needs to be told. I'm not saying don't tell their stories. I'm not saying don't report on it. I'm just saying be a little bit more ethical about it when you're using trauma and abuse and hurt as a way to make your money. Be a little bit more ethical about it. That's all I'm asking, is just be a little bit more ethical about it. Because it's only after a victim comes out on Twitter, or if they come out publicly on YouTube, that y'all seem to care. When there are little boys, little girls, grown men, there are people disappearing every day. Like, there's more to talk about than just like the allegations of YouTubers. There's more to talk about than just like the victims of YouTubers. And I'm not trying to disrespect y'all. Like, I'm glad that I heard your story. I'm glad that we got to know your story. Don't even think that. That is not the case. I'm just saying what the commentators who've told your stories of fucking abuse, literally, what they choose to report on is so telling. But it's not about the money. But what they choose to report on is so telling. You don't see them over here reporting on some girl that's not involved with the YouTuber who's just being sexually assaulted and needs help because the police won't listen to her. Her family won't listen to her. Like, you get what I'm saying? That's when I feel like YouTube is necessary, when all of your resources have burned out. Go to YouTube. But when you have resources available, you go to those resources before you just make a jump, make a decision to do that. They don't seem to care. That's all I'm saying. Also, to the victims, I know that this is hard, and I know that things like this come with stress, anguish, and pain. It is not just as easy as I am making it out to be right now. But if you've given up even before you try can you really say that you did everything in your power? Like, to try for yourself. Because essentially, this is your power. When you think about it, this is your power. You take power back when you file a police report. And while the legal system is not the best, if we don't use it for what it's for and then discredit it, of course, it's not gonna work. It's easy to say that it's a lost cause. It's easy to say that it doesn't work. It's easy to say that it's a waste of time, which makes it easy for people to take it to YouTube. It's also easy to say you don't want to make that about your life. But I will say that unless you sit down with yourself and actually tell yourself, like, I won't let this affect me, I won't let it hurt me, the only way you can get your power back is to see them in jail, is to see them behind bars where they belong, because it is your legal fucking right to see that shit. That is your due diligence. And I'm not trying to shame people who don't report. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just saying that the satisfaction that you get from seeing that person who hurt you in jail, as they should be, and in jail for a very long time as they should be, is far, far, far more accommodating than them out and about in the world, working in environments, hurting more people, you know what I'm saying, abusing more people. Because the more people we have report on an instance, the more people are likely to go to jail. Then it becomes a pattern of behavior, and then it's more likely to get convicted because of the attention around it. The thing with law enforcement is that they don't like media attention. And if you hear a story about millions and billions and billions of women coming against this guy, that guy, this guy, that guy, or just if you hear basically more than one account, it becomes a lot more pressure on them, and we need to put a lot more pressure on them. And I guess that's why I'm also putting a lot more pressure onto commentators, because I'm seeing and recognizing that this is where more victims are going, especially to tell their story. And I want you guys to step up your game. If you are saying that you're better than the fucking police system, which you're not because you have no power, but if you're saying that you are, I need you to step up your game. I need you to start compensating these girls and guys and children. If, like, literally, I need you to start compensating them. Get in touch with their parents. Like, you get what I'm saying? Don't talk to minors without the consent of their parents. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta actually think about it. You want to virtue signal and be holier than thou, and not actually taking into account of how people fucking feel. Of like show some empathy is what I'm saying. Because you're showing some empathy, but it feels like fake empathy. It feels like the facade empathy. It feels like a mask, is what I'm saying. And I won't call anybody specifically out because I'm not that type. But some of y'all, I do see you. I do see you on how you report on things, how you thumbnail things, how you put the abuser in the fucking thumbnail. Because that's definitely what we want to see. Like, I never understood that too. How y'all sit here and it's like it's about the victims, but then you place the abuser's face dead smack in the middle of the thumbnail. It is beyond me. And I can confidently say to victims that there is a 5% chance that these people actually care. You get what I'm saying? Because here's the thing. Basically, with the law, with the cops, it's their job to listen to you. It's their job to take statements, and they're obligated to do it. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes they do it efficiently, and sometimes they don't. But it's their job. While YouTubers, on the other hand, it's their job. They just don't have the credentials, and essentially they're not obligated to do it. They just do it because people ask them to, because people raise awareness to them, but it's never something that's on their radar. It's never something they find themselves. It's always something presented towards them. And even though that the system has failed me, when it comes to the justice that I sought, even so, I felt better knowing that I did everything in my power that I could to try and seek that justice. I felt better going down to the police station, even though it was right after that incident happened to me. But I felt better. I felt good. I was okay because I knew I did the right thing for me. Even if it didn't work out, even if they couldn't find anything, I knew I did the right thing for me. And if it wasn't for me actually abiding by the structure and the rules, I wouldn't have known what to do or where to go. Thankfully, they provide you those resources that I'm telling you that commentators need to provide to you. Even though they failed me in one aspect, they helped me in other aspects. Also, make sure you try and get a lawyer, because it never hurts to get the legal perspective of somebody else. And you need to get a lawyer just in case you want to take legal action. Do not let public lawyers defend you because they are terrible at their job, because they don't get paid enough. That way, you can take your power back. You can take it back in more than one way. You know what I'm saying? You can take it back in the courtroom. You can take it back online. You can take it back through your appearance. You can do whatever you need to do to take it back. I just feel more people should get comfortable with taking their power back legally, because nobody feels comfortable with it, because we all talk down on it, we're all pessimistic about it, and nobody's ever really advocating for it, because nobody likes the police. Like, let's be real, in this current state, in this current stigma, nobody really wants to deal with the fucking police either, and that's okay. That's fine, that's dandy, but I urge you to actually go through the legal system and actually just take your time. Take your time. And then even if you feel like no one is listening and the world is against you, the power is yours. It's always been yours. I'm a firm believer that the story of assault, of trauma, of victimhood should always be told by the victim. Use your voice, because that's where your power lies. And you don't need anyone but yourself. And then there will be a point where you no longer call yourself a victim, because that's not what you are. Ciao. Anyway, so that was today's video. If you like the video, then leave a like on the video. If you agree with anything that I said, comment down below. If you disagree with me, comment down below as well. I love hearing the perspective of all people. Anywho, I'm just chilling. This is the end of the video, so I'm just trying to figure out shit to say. I'll see you in the next one. Jana.
Sweet like honey lavender, keep on running back to her, back to her. You don't wanna stay the night.